Deadman Wonderland is a series you should never forget, and I can tell you one thing, to this day I still hold it very close to my heart, despite how bloody and gruesome it really is. But really, that's one of its more redeeming qualities. When it comes to dark, gruesome, let alone edgy anime, Deadman Wonderland is easily at the pinnacle of it. I mean, for crying out loud, the manga starts with the main character's entire class getting killed, and he would get blamed for murdering every single last one of them. Who did this and why did this happen? Immediately right off the bat, Deadman Wonderland gives you the perfect excuse to see this manga all the way up until the end. And the worst part about it all is that most people don't ever make it that far. Deadman Wonderland is a classic, and I'm gonna tell you one thing, it should never ever be forgotten. It has the most interesting prison in anime, and I'm gonna say that with a straight face. I mean, do you know another prison that's gonna have mascots gunning you down for entertainment, or force people to fight to the death and the loser, unfortunately, has to get their eye gouged out, lose a kidney, or even worse? It doesn't ever let up, and that's the best thing about it. The prison itself would be solely designed around an amusement park, and the main attraction here would be the blood and guts of everyone inside of it. Convicts, murderers, and the bottom feeders of society, which leads to the most disturbing part about it all. No one cares about your suffering, and they undoubtedly love seeing you get tortured, despite knowing little to nothing about you. Come to think of it, this would sound insane, and that's exactly what Deadman Wonderland is. A playground for psychopaths. It would be a place where a 7-year-old can dismember your body into many chunks of flesh and eat them in satisfaction. It would become an opportunity for a man that would scalp the faces off of women and turn their appearance into a fashion sense by sewing together their hair, mouths, and eye sockets. And these freaks of nature would be nothing compared to the rest. As if it couldn't get any worse, our main character Ganta is a coward, which makes every life or death situation that he comes across that much more nerve-wracking. What the hell is he going to do? Is he going to sit there and let everyone die? Or is he going to be a source of hope that is going to blur the lines of insanity? He would struggle with the constant idea of being weak and powerless, and let not only himself but the people around him get trampled on. Ganta would always have to be saved, and he would run away from all of his problems. Ganta would be no different than a child. In his youth, he would have a favorite fictional character known as Ace Man, who would be a superhero that would help and save people in their time of need. And honestly, you could say Ganta is much like him. Even though he's weak throughout the entire story, he's the only person that tries to save everyone. And the cost of his own life wouldn't come close to stopping him. And it happens every single time, so it's hard not to compare him to this superhero. Even so, this extends much further than that because Ganta, like I said, would want to save everyone. And rather than just being compared to just Ace Man, he would be compared to someone else entirely. And that would be Jesus. Because in the face of diversity, he would have to fight against his trauma over and over and over again. He would run away from all of his problems, just like how he did as a child. And Ganta would always get back up and fight despite his feelings, despite his pain, despite his trauma. He would hate that weaker version of himself and choose to become someone else. One of the biggest quotes in this manga would be that only little kids have the luxury of being able to count on someone else. And this couldn't be more true because as a child, Ganta would be roaming around a facility and he would run into a dog, with it attacking him and trying to maul him to death. He would cry out to Ace Man for help multiple times, and no one would come. Then Shiro would save his life. You see, no matter what happens, Ganta can always depend on Shiro to save him. Just like in his childhood, which causes him to relive through these same experiences over and over again, until he finally stops making the same mistake. This is what makes Ganta so special as a character. He takes his childhood trauma and destroys it as the story progresses. And luckily for him, he wouldn't be as insane or crazy as the other characters, who have a way harder time dealing with their trauma. Ganta would finally fight Crow, and this fight would change their entire relationship. Ganta would only win this fight because he never gives up, and as punishment for losing, Crow would have to get his entire eye gouged out. And afterwards, some way, somehow, he's friends with Ganta. They would become the best of friends, but Ganta would still feel bad over Crow losing his eye. Ganta would think that it's his fault. Because he won, Crow would have to get tortured, and he would still feel like it's all his fault. This would all happen because of Ganta's weakness, and he just can't help caring about everyone around him. Afterwards, Ganta and Crow would fight Toto, and Toto would have Crow at his mercy, about to gouge out his other eye. This would be a repeat of this same situation Ganta lived through again. Crow would lose his own eye, all because of Ganta another time. These are the situations that Ganta faces that I'm talking about. Facing the same scenarios, making the same mistakes. And to prevent this from happening again, Ganta would sacrifice himself, which makes him less of a child than what he used to be, and lets you understand why he would be compared to Jesus. No matter what, even with the weight of the cross on his back, Ganta keeps moving. He never gives up. And this would inspire every single deranged lunatic inside of Deadman Wonderland to follow in the footsteps of God. They would use the powers known as the Branch of Sin, and they would continue to battle and face all of their demons. This prison that all of these people are living in is hell. So you can see that I'm not just making this up. Ganta would be the savior. Ganta would give everyone hope. He is their god. To help you further understand this, Crow would go as far as to saying he's not just a good and honest kid, he's a miracle. And this couldn't be closer to the truth, because Ganta saves everyone from not only their horrible pasts, but their sins. Before, I mentioned how Ganta would beat Crow by never giving up, and he would never give up by grabbing Crow by his leg. And when Crow would fight Toto, he would do this same exact thing, showing just how much Ganta truly changes all of these hopeless people, or to be more accurate, sinners. Crow's past would haunt him forever, making him desire to be stronger than anything else, which is why whenever you see him, he would only want to find out who the strongest is. He would do this to try and escape the trauma of having to depend on other people. He would not want to be like Ganta. He would hate the idea of being weak. Even though everyone is stuck in Deadman Wonderland, or hell, he would say that the outside world is no different. We kill, we lie, and the strong survive. His biggest advice for Ganta would be, if you're weak, don't bare your fangs. And this is all thanks to what happened in Crow's past. He would have originally been a cop, so you can understand why he would view the outside world the way he does. He and his 4 friends would help protect Tokyo from evil, but unfortunately, those 4 friends would get murdered. And to honor them, he would have all 4 of their initials tattooed above his eye. Losing his friends would change his life entirely. This tragedy made Crow afraid of counting on others. And coincidentally, he would finally run into the man that killed them, inside of Deadman Wonderland. That murderer would be Ikazuchi. This fight would be extremely personal for Crow, because not only would he be avenging all of his dead friends, but he would be fighting himself. He would fight against his own demons, his own sins. Just like how he told Ganta that the weak can't bear their fangs and that only the strong survive, Ikazuchi would live his life the same way Crow does. They would both value strength and nothing else. Ikazuchi would be the embodiment of the trauma that transformed Crow into a monster, and he would have to face this same monster now. He would fight his ideals and immense hunger for strength, finally letting him see how being weak isn't a bad thing. This lets Crow proudly walk into the same footsteps as Christ, just like how Ganta does. Both of these characters would be afraid of having all of their friends die, and only little kids would have the luxury of being able to count on someone else. Just like how Crow counted on his friends in the past, Ganta would count on Crow to beat Ikazuchi. The only difference between Crow and Ganta here is the fact that Crow lost all of his friends in the past, while Ganta saves them. The relationship between the two of them is the very fact that they try and protect each other from the pain and trauma of loss. If you haven't realized it yet, this story is all about protecting the people around you and saving them from their own pain. And they do this by accepting and washing away all of their sins, even though some of these characters seem like they're far beyond saving. Even the bloodiest hands, even the most damned soul can find God, and there will always be comfort in that. God would come in many different forms, shapes, and places. God is anywhere and everywhere, and most importantly, God is inside all of us and always comes at our times of need. After all, God is without a doubt our savior. And now we're gonna backtrack. Ganta was getting mauled by a dog, and Shiro had saved his life. She would be just like the superhero Ace Man. At least, that's what we're led to believe. But to be more precise, Shiro was Ganta's god, his hope, his savior, someone that could end his suffering, just like how God blesses us. But what happens when we can't get saved from our suffering? When does the pain ever stop? In this story, Shiro would have a life that no one should ever live. A life where she only exists to be hurt. A life of endless suffering. I hope you can begin to understand that everything that I'm saying is true. Shiro would be held down to a cross, and she would be tortured every single day, all thanks to her regenerative abilities. She would do the only thing that she can, and she would call out and cry for Ace Man. Yet Ace Man would never come. For this child, there is no God. Ace Man, not even Ganta, could save her. In her life, there is no hope. The only thing that can stop all this pain is death. And with her regenerative ability, death would be impossible. You see, insanity would be the only answer to all of these characters' problems. Out of desperation, the only thing that they can do is pray for salvation. Which brings us to another lunatic, Genkaku, the Buddhist monk. He would live to save others, and he would pray to be saved, even though his mind is broken. Whenever he kills someone, he would save them. As a child, all he would know is pain. He would constantly be tormented and beaten, while everything that he loved would die. How do you escape such pain? The only answer is death. Death is silence. Death is peace. Death is tranquility. Death is the answer. Death is enlightenment. Death is rock. Death is beauty. Death would save us all. If there is no God, the only thing that we can do is die. Genkaku had lost his mind, or maybe he understood something that everyone else didn't. The true nature of the world and living. Both Genkaku and Shiro would want to be saved from the pain of living by death. God would have forsaken them both, whether it's Ace Man, Ganta, Christ, the Owl, or even Buddha. God had been lost. And rather than living with this pain, they would find the only people capable of killing them. Genkaku would find Owl, while Shiro would find Ganta. This is why they gravitate towards both Ganta and the Owl. They are the only people that can kill them, with Genkaku calling the Owl his salvation. The only thing that Genkaku and Shiro would want is for their suffering to end. This is why Genkaku would kill the Owl's family, and this is the same reason as to why Shiro would kill Ganta's friends. They wanted to push Ganta and the Owl to kill them. They would kill so that they can be killed. This gives us the opportunity to understand just why they became insane. And it shows us what love can lead to, which is why Shiro and Ganta's relationship is so complicated. When he would call out to Ace Man, she would show up and save him. But when Shiro would call out to Ace Man, Ganta would be nowhere in sight. They would save each other because they love each other. And with love, naturally, you would support the people around you and help them get what they want. And so Shiro would want Ganta to kill her because he's the only one that can free her from this suffering. This is what their love would amount to. They would love each other so much that it would make them kill each other. But is this really the right way to go about these things? I hate to get so psychological and religious with this video, but this is exactly what Deadman Wonderland is. This is what the story is all about. Life, death, God, and how to deal with the inner workings of your mind. The manga itself would also be a love story, giving everyone a further idea on not only what they want, but how who and what they love gives them the strength to live another day. All of these things are what Deadman Wonderland is all about, and in order to appreciate this manga, you have to give a lot of it some thought. Otherwise, it can come across a little stereotypical, making it only stand out for how bloody and gruesome it really is, even though other anime and manga do just that. In this video, I hope you understood the qualities that Deadman Wonderland really has, despite you being religious or not. Whether you're guilty or not, even if you're suffering on a day-to-day basis, whether it's dealing with your trauma or living with all the weight of your sins, there's always a road to your salvation that can help make your life just a little bit easier. As I say this, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this manga review, check out these other mangas I'm showing on your screen. You're definitely going to love those ones.